When the massive alien ship came to a stop over Johannesburg, it was a major event in history. For months there was no movement from the ship, no sign of life, so the government decided to launch a massive operation to cut their way into the ship to make first contact. What they found though was horrifying. There were about 1 million decimated and malnutritioned humanoid alien creatures resembling prawns trapped on the ship. Due to international pressure, the government established an aid group for the aliens and brought them down to Earth to a temporary holding zone, which very soon turned into a militarized alien slum called District 9. Meanwhile, the government was busy investigating the cause for the ship's breakdown, and there was a theory that a command module separated from the ship upon first arrival but now could not be located. Due to their nature, the aliens were very destructive, blowing up buildings, derailing trains and kidnapping women, using energy weapons brought with them on their ship to commit robberies and heists. Riots began as humans started demanding that the aliens leave their city and their planet for good. To ease tensions in the city, the government appointed the company Multinational United, MNU, to lead in the relocation of almost 2 million aliens, called prawns, to a more isolated location and away from the city. At the MNU briefing for the massive operation, agents are instructed to get the prawns to sign an eviction form to get the process moving. To lead the operation, an MNU employee Wikus is promoted to field officer. The MNU agents are accompanied by a large military convoy with intense air cover as their backup. The convoy and air support get to the chaotic District 9 ready to begin the process. As Wikus and his assistant exit their vehicle, they are greeted by gunfire but manage to make an escape. Wikus gets to the first shack in the district, and the prawn just smacks the paper away, but Wikus still uses his handprint as a signature. Just outside, a prawn gets into an altercation with an officer and rips the guy's arm off before he is gunned down. Other prawns begin to gather around them, and to avoid a mess, Wikus throws cat food to the prawns to distract them. To get another prawn to sign the form, Wikus bribes him with cat food, which we find out is like catnip to prawns. Wikus and his team then come upon the Nigerian compound within District 9, ran by a man called Obisanjo. Here the Nigerians and the prawns have built quite a relationship, setting up betting rings with fights between small alien bugs, running cat food scams and organizing interspecies hormone exchange. Wikus and his team get to a shack and stumble upon a prawn nest, where a dead cow is drained of its nutrients using tubes leading to the egg sacs. Wikus begins unplugging the egg sacs as the baby prawns scream and die. The entire shack is then burnt and Wikus is excited hearing the babies pop as they die. Wikus and his team then come upon a massive cache of hidden weapons, and here we see the real reason for the relocation of the prawns: weapons. The government wants to use these weapons but quickly realize that the guns are biologically engineered to work with prawns. We then see 3 prawns rummaging in a dump nearby. They are looking for pieces of their technology that contain a specific fluid, and eventually find what they need. They make it back to their makeshift lab, where they are experimenting with the fluid, and one prawn, seemingly their leader, notes that 20 years of work has finally paid off. They hear Wikus and his team approaching their shack and grab the container with the processed fluid. The leader hands the container to his friend, telling him to hide it as he has to get back to his son. Wikus and his team come to the shack, but the prawn is not cooperative, so the MNU military take him away, while Wikus goes in to look for weapons. Wikus comes upon the lab, not sure what to make of it but continues to rummage around. He finds the fluid container hidden away and begins messing with it when a black fluid sprays into his face. Wikus recovers and bags up the container, saying it might contain hazardous materials and needs to be taken to the lab. Wikus and his team then come upon the biggest weapon cache they have ever seen and radios in for additional military backup. Wikus excitedly picks up a massive gun and goes outside to show it off to the team, who still have the prawn at gunpoint. Wikus begins taunting the prawn, telling him that the 1st Battalion is coming to get him, when the prawn suddenly attacks, throwing Wikus with incredible strength, breaking his arm. The MNU military team shoot the prawn, and the 1st Battalion leader Kubus finishes it off with a shot to the head. Wikus is given medical treatment and his arm is placed in a sling. Meanwhile, the prawn leader watches in shock as his friend is killed. He returns to his home to his very small prawn child, telling him to go outside and look out for humans. Wikus and his team come upon the house with the prawn boy outside, disgusted at how the prawns are having babies, which is why they get rid of the eggs. Wikus throws a candy to the prawn, but it just throws it right back. The father comes out, apologizing for his son's behavior. Wikus tells him to sign the paper as he is being evicted, but the prawn refuses, telling him that it is illegal and he should be given 24-hour notice. Realizing that this prawn actually knows the law, Wikus then lies that the litter in the yard is dangerous for the child's safety, so he will take the boy to child services. Wikus goes inside, looking for the boy, and sees loads of electronics hanging around. He thinks the prawn is a criminal and demands that the military guys hold him. Wikus is searching for the boy but suddenly gets sick and runs outside to throw up. Not feeling well, He decides to leave the prawn alone and head back to base. Wikus is on his way back when he stops at the side of the road to get some food with his team. As he is eating, the guys notice black fluid draining from his nose. Wikus is back in his office filling out paperwork, when horrifyingly he sees his fingernail pop off. He rushes to the bathroom to see more of his nails come loose. Back in the district, the prawn leader and his son are searching his friend's shack for the fluid container but cannot find it. At the Nigerian compound, Obisanjo is trading cat food for advanced prawn weapons, even without the ability to use them. As the deal is done, the men kill one of the prawns. We then see how the Nigerians have been using witchcraft, eating the body parts of prawns, hoping to gain the ability to use the weapons. Wikus is on his way home, ill and wanting to use the bathroom. He gets in to see that a surprise party has been thrown for him to celebrate his promotion. He tries to get away but his father-in-law and boss Pete pulls him aside. Pete is mad at the number of alien casualties that occurred during the operation and warns Wikus to get things under control. Wikus finally gets away to the bathroom, and during the entire party Wikus is nauseous, vomiting black fluid all over the cake before collapsing. He is taken to the hospital where the doctor is cutting away his bloodied arm cast. To their surprise, Wikus's arm has transformed into a prawn arm. Wikus freaks out and the doctor gives him nitrous oxide to calm him down. The entire hospital goes into lockdown as soldiers rush in and begin to force Wikus into a black bag. His wife screams for him, but she is barred from getting to him. Wikus is airlifted to a secret government facility, where scientists begin to examine and experiment on his arm. They find the container holding the black fluid and take it away. Wikus is then carried to another area of the facility where prawns are being experimented on in different ways. Seeing that Wikus's prawn arm is a part of his nervous system, he is immediately used to test the prawn weapons that the government has gathered. Wikus cries for his wife but the scientists prod him constantly to fire each weapon they bring in. Next, the scientists bring in a prawn and use Wikus's human arm to successfully fire the weapon, blowing the prawn up. After, the scientists discuss Wikus's condition with Pete, who is not the least concerned about Wikus. They inform him that the transformation will continue and Wikus will eventually transform into a prawn. The scientists want to harvest Wikus's organs and body parts to continue their experiments while the human and prawn DNA is balanced, citing that a lot of money can be made from this. Wikus begs Pete to help him, but Pete ignores his son-in-law and gives the go-ahead. Pete then breaks the news to his daughter, lying that the doctors are trying to save her husband. She asks to see him but Pete refuses. Meanwhile, the doctors are trying to strap Wikus down to begin harvesting his body, but he suddenly breaks free and grabs one of the doctors. He uses the man as a shield before escaping the lab. Pete gets the call and orders that Kubus be put on the hunt for him. Wikus makes his way back home, stealing a cell phone along the way. He gets to the house where he sees it surrounded by MNU agents. He calls his wife but his mother-in-law answers, warning him not to call back the house. For the next few days Wikus becomes a fugitive from the government who hunts him non-stop. He stops by a store to get food, when he sees a news report come on about him, warning people that he was infected after prolonged hormone exchange with aliens. The people recognize him and run out of the store, before Wikus grabs some food and makes his escape. Wikus becomes a worldwide celebrity as all news stations are covering his run from the law. Wikus takes refuge in District 9, the one place he might be safe. After spending the night in a shack, Wikus manages to find some cat food to eat, then heads over to the Nigerian compound to buy meat. He gets cat food instead and hungrily destroys the can, before realizing that his teeth are now falling out as well. Wikus then gets a call from his wife who is in tears. He tries convincing her that he did not touch the prawn and begs her to not give up on him, but all he hears are sobs. Then the call ends. Fed up with his situation, Wikus grabs an axe from the butcher's and tries to chop off his own arm. He manages to chop off a finger before hearing helicopters in the distance. It is the MNU coming into District 9 in full force to capture him. He runs to hide inside a shack which is also occupied by the prawn leader who demands that he leave. Wikus begs for his help before collapsing and the prawn man sees that his arm has transformed. He decides to help Wikus and throws him into the basement of the shack. Once he awakens, the prawn man demands that he hand over the fluid, realizing that the fluid has caused his mutation. Wikus tells him that the MNU has it at their labs and the prawn man is furious, telling him that he has ruined everything. Wikus then notices lots of computers and wires, and realizes that he is actually inside the alien command module. The prawn man's son tells Wikus that they need the fuel to fly away, but prawn man does not trust Wikus. The prawn man tells Wikus that his arm can be fixed using the machines back on the mothership, however they do not have the fluid to get there. Wikus thinks they can gather more, but learns that that amount of fluid took 20 years to collect. The prawn man wants to break into MNU to get the fluid but Wikus disagrees, thinking they have no chance. 66 hours after being exposed, Wikus returns to his shack and notices that the skin on his body has begun to peel off, revealing a hard exoskeleton underneath. Wikus breaks down in tears, until he gets another call from Tanya, who is worried about him. She tells Wikus that she wants to have her husband back, and he tells her that he has a plan and everything will be alright. All this while, Pete is listening and has triangulated his location. Prawn Man and his son looking at their home planet on a hologram. His son is excited about finally leaving Earth, wondering if they will go home, but the Prawn Man reveals that they can no longer return home. Wikus turns up telling the Prawn Man that he has decided to break into MNU and steal the fluid back, and knows where he can get weapons to fight. Wikus heads to the Nigerian compound asking for weapons, but the men simply mock him for getting it on with a prawn. Wikus demands weapons and gets himself dragged into a tent where he is met by Obasanjo and his armed men. Wikus nervously begs the boss for some weapons, but Obasanjo is only interested in finding out where his mutation is. They plan on killing Wikus and eating him. They begin to attack Wikus, but when his hand accidentally activates a nearby gun, Wikus begins to blast the men away. He threatens Obasanjo, but the man just wants to know how he got his hand, threatening to find him. Wikus picks up a bag of weapons and heads outside where the men stand back, not daring to attack the man holding the alien weapon. Meanwhile, the MNU strike team has made their way over to Prawn Man's shack, but finds the place empty. There is a sudden attack on the MNU headquarters, as Wikus and Prawn Man break into the building, making their way to the secret lab. They break into the experiment room and Wikus manages to locate the canister, but the Prawn Man is distracted as he sees his mutilated brethren on the table. Wikus and his team reach the lab and open fire at Wikus, who is returning fire with an electric weapon. They are pinned down, but Prawn Man creates a bomb and blows a hole leading to the car park. They steal an MNU vehicle and manage to avoid gunfire and escape. Wikus and his men follow by helicopter, trying to disable the vehicle. Wikus and Prawn Man make a run for it and get to their shack, and Prawn Man and his son prepare to leave. Wikus wants to know when he will be fixed, but Prawn Man tells him that it would take 3 years to heal him. Wikus is mad, but Prawn Man tells him that he must help his own people first, causing Wikus to knock him out. Wikus and his team make it to the shack and begins beating Prawn Man, ordering him to open the door. Wikus and the Prawn Man's son have activated the ship and Wikus manages to get it started. The ship begins to lift, destroying the shack and kicking up loads of dust. Wikus orders a missile strike and one of the engines is hit, causing the ship to crash back to Earth. Obasanjo watches this on the news, ordering his men to get Wikus. Wikus and his men pull up to the downed craft and find Wikus. They load him into the back of their van to take him and Prawn Man back to MNU headquarters. As they are leaving the district, the Nigerians turn up, flipping Wikus's truck and a massive gunfight erupts. Obasanjo's man cut the van open and drag Wikus right before Obasanjo again. They hold him down to take off his arm, but the MNU has called in reinforcements and the Nigerians are forced to defend their compound. Obasanjo calls in a witch to do a ritual, who tells him that he will eat the arm. Meanwhile, Prawn Man's son is still on the ship. He manages to communicate with the mother ship overhead, which releases a massive pulse which activates a war machine in Obasanjo's shack. The bot begins to blast the men. They try to fire at it, but it stops all the bullets, then wipes out the men in an instant. The machine then turns to Wikus, opening up to reveal a pilot's seat inside. The massive ship begins to move over the city, shaking everything around. MNU agents pull Prawn Man out of the truck, demanding to know why the ship is moving. Meanwhile, Wikus and another team have made it to Obasanjo's shack. They try and smoke Wikus out of the building, but instead, he steps into the war machine and bursts out of the shack. Wikus sees Prawn Man surrounded by agents, and begs them to keep Prawn Man but to let him leave. Wikus runs away, but when he hears that they plan to kill Prawn Man, he returns, wiping out the team. He plans to take Prawn Man back to his son and the two evade gunfire while trying to escape. The MNU use a high-caliber rifle to hit the suit hard, but Wikus manages to kill the sniper. Due to the amount of gunfire, the suit begins to malfunction and Wikus is forced to stop. Prawn Man does not want to leave him, but Wikus tells him to go and not let his sacrifice be in vain. Prawn Man runs off to safety. Wikus then turns to engage. He tackles a truck before opening up his arsenal of weapons on the men, killing a lot of them. There are a lot of soldiers, but Wikus is determined to hold his ground. Meanwhile, Prawn Man gets back to his son in the ship. The massive mothership has come to a standstill over the downed craft. Prawn Man then activates the mothership's traction beam and holds his son as the small craft begins to lift into the sky. Wikus sees the craft and grabs a launcher to fire, but Wikus grabs the rocket mid-flight, which explodes. A car then rams into the suit, throwing Wikus down, and he watches craft rise into the mothership. Wikus's suit is done for. He releases himself and falls to the ground in pain. Wikus tries to crawl away, but Wikus confronts him. Kubus decides to kill him, but before he can, prawns begin surrounding him, eventually taking him down and tearing him to pieces. Prawn Man and his son manage to make it back to the mothership safely. After 20 years they finally get the ship working and it begins to lift from Earth. In the city, the people celebrate the aliens finally leaving, gathering in the street to watch the craft go. On the ground, Wikus watches in joy as the craft leaves, feeling proud of his actions. Wikus eventually disappears from public radar with the government actively searching for him. The aliens left on Earth were resettled to District 10 with their numbers reaching 2.5 million and counting. The film ends with a video of a prawn, assumed to be Wikus, rummaging through the trash. Remember to turn on notifications, so you can watch more movie recaps like this. Thanks for watching.